Hi, this is Mike, WB4HUC, and in the previous video we looked at how to set the Elecraft K4 up to receive and decode PSK signals right within the radio. No computer or computer software is used. It's all done inside the radio, which is a feature that the K4 has. So what about transmit? So that's what this video is for, is to show you how to set up for transmitting. And just to find a starting point here. So one thing I didn't mention in the previous video about receive is another thing you can do when you're zeroed in on a signal is you can narrow the receive filter, which I didn't demonstrate, but you could change this to 100 hertz and perhaps that'll knock out a little bit of the noise on the side. And you can see this is a very good signal. So no problem copying this signal. Anyway, I just wanted to add this at the beginning of this video since I didn't mention it in the previous video. But what we're here to talk about now is how to set the radio up to transmit. And here's your transmit window. So there are a few ways to do this, and I want to go through those. And again, this will be kind of quick, but it'll give you the idea, and then you can go try this out with your own radio. So one way to transmit PSK31 is to use your CW paddle, and it will convert the Morse code into PSK signals and send them out on the air. So I'm going to change to the dummy load. You can also do this in transmit test mode, where you're not putting anything out on the air at all, but just for the sake of making it sort of realistic anyway, we'll actually go ahead and do the transmitting. I'm on my main antenna here, which is connected to my KT500 tuner, and now I'm on the dummy load. And I'm going to turn the power down to something like 5 watts, more or less. And so you can't see it, but I will be operating the paddle. And so there's the side tone. And so if I do this right, you'll hear both. You'll hear the CW side tone while you're transmitting, and then you'll hear the signals being converted from CW to PSK. So I'm just going to use the paddle, and I'm going to send a CQ. We're on the dummy load, just make sure we're all okay here. And we can turn the preamp off. So I'm just going to use the paddle now and send a CQ. Now, one thing you notice is it's easy to run your characters together if you don't mind your spacing. And then the other thing you notice is if you make a typo, you can't go back and fix it. You just have to keep going. And then the other thing you notice is as soon as I started transmitting with the paddle, the transmitter keyed up. And then when I stopped with the paddle, it transmitted the message and then unkeyed the transmitter. So it's a pretty automatic process. Just mind your spacing with the CW paddle and try not to make any mistakes or typos. And away you go. Now the other way to do this is you can use a keyboard. So I have a wireless keyboard and mouse dongle plugged into the USB port, one of the USB ports on the back of the radio, and that gives me this mouse, the cursor that you see there on the screen, and it gives me a keyboard that I can use to send with, which I'm going to take off its tray and set up to use right now. And it's the same thing. As soon as I start typing, the rig will start transmitting. But with the keyboard, you can backspace and correct any typos, I think. We'll try that out. But that's the second way that you can transmit. Now, what you'll notice, though, is in this transmit line, it won't clear and then start over or anything. The first character I type is going to be right after this K. So, you just have to be mindful of that kind of thing. It doesn't hurt anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's just when you see it, it looks kind of odd, but that's the way it is. So if we call CQ again, we should be ready to go. So you didn't hear the side tone for the paddle because it didn't use the paddle, but you did see, and I put a space before I typed CQ. I simply hit the space bar. And when I hit the space bar, the radio keyed up and started transmitting. And then as I typed the characters, you saw that I screwed up the CQ. So I backspaced and fixed it and then kept going. And so that's the second way that you can transmit PSK signals using the built-in PSK feature of the K4. And then the third way is message memories. Again, the keyboard comes in handy here for entering the message memories or changing them or whatever. So there are four message memories on the K4. There's a row of buttons across the top to the right of the LCD display, M1 through M4, and then there's a record button. So if I press the record button on the front of the radio, then I have to tell it which memory. So I'll say M1, and that's a CQ, and I can use the keyboard to back up and show the whole message. I think these are limited to 60 characters. And then if you're satisfied with what you've typed in here, and you can use the on-screen keyboard. So I'm going to press the T here. There's the T. Now I gotta, okay, so then we erase it. So you can use the on-screen keyboard and a mouse, which is pretty handy. You can also touch the letters on the screen with your finger, but my hands and fingers are kind of big, and sometimes I hit the wrong key or I hit the edge of two keys. I prefer the keyboard, and then I prefer the on-screen keyboard. And then when you're satisfied with what you have, you can press enter. And if we want to look at another memory, we press the record button, and then we press, say, M2. So message 2 is name in QTH. And then we can say enter. Record in M3 is rig and antenna. And then M4. Okay. So this is where I'm just telling the other person that I'm using the built-in PSK feature. So then as soon as you press one of the message buttons, that will be loaded from the memory into the radio. The radio will key up and transmit and then unkey when the message is finished. Again, of course, you won't hear the CW side tone because you're not using the paddle. But so I will press, let's do the name in QTH. I will press M2 on the front of the radio. Oh, and before I forget, so you see this message 2. There are 4 messages in 2 banks, which gives you 8 messages total. And there's a button on the front of the radio you push, and you can switch between message bank 1 and message bank 2. Message bank 1 is messages for CW, and message bank 2 is messages for PSK 31. So I'm going to press message button number 2, and the other thing you'll see is the message will show up in the transmit window uh, complete. So in other words, it won't scroll across the screen as it's sending the characters. What'll happen is you'll see the whole message appear all at once in the transmit window, and then the message gets transmitted, and then the radio goes back into receive mode. So I'm going to press M2, and you can watch all that happen. So here is the message. It showed up all at once. You can hear it being transmitted, and now we're finished, and the radio goes back to receive mode. So that's about it. 3 ways to uh, send messages: paddle, keyboard, or message memory. We talked about how to receive. So the next video will be hopefully maybe short QSO, but a complete QSO, just demonstrating how all this works live on the air. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll get the third video out as soon as I can.